Hi everyone, hope you're keeping safe, hope you're keeping sane, hope me changing my shirt and jacket over the last 3 videos has fooled you into believing they weren't all recorded at exactly the same time. But, yeah, well, obviously not exactly the same time, back to back, you know what I mean. Anyway, just a quick video today. Obviously, I was off this channel for a while, didn't make a lot of videos, and as such, I've missed out on a lot of your comments. So my apologies that I haven't read all your comments and responded to them as, you know, as I often try to do. I often receive the occasional negative comment, and that's fine. One of the ones I receive quite regularly is normally always in a follow-up to a video where I've spoken about how long I was gambling for, you know, what age I started from, how many years I was, and basically either give directly or indirectly my age. And invariably, I will always get a ton of comments back saying, "Oh, you look far older than that. Can't believe you're only this age. Bloody hell, you look at least 60, etc., etc., etc." And you know what? This is something I've, you know, come to live with. Ever since I was in my teens, I've always, you know, looked older than I am. And don't get me wrong, when you're 15 years old and you're trying to get served at the local pub, then, yeah, maybe looking a little bit older doesn't do you any disservice. In fact, it can be somewhat of a benefit. Besides, when you're younger, not that it worked for me, because I was absolutely terrible with girls and women when I was in my teens, but it can be a thing that some women like when you're that age. But anyway, that's all kind of by the by. Do I let these comments get to me? No. Have I made peace with the fact that I do look older than I am? Yeah, absolutely. It's got to a point where it doesn't bother me. I'm married, I'm settled, it's not really an issue. But I make a point of it on this video because actually could be, my premature aging could easily be attributed to my gambling. And I mean that directly and indirectly. And if this channel hasn't provided you with enough warnings as to the dangers of gambling, maybe looking in your 50s when you're in your early 40s is just yet another reason to maybe stay clear from or get into recovery from this incredibly destructive habit. Now, the stress of gambling, you know, is untold. We all know that, not just the stress of, you know, the process of gambling, waiting to see if you will get that winner or waiting to see if you can make some form of financial comeback on the slots or on the online casinos or whatever. But the stress before, you know, waiting to gamble, and certainly the stress after, the, you know, what have I just done? How am I going to do this? How am I going to fix the financial hole I have now created for myself through this addiction? But there are also other indirect effects from gambling which are likely to lead to premature aging. Gambling does cause things like stress and the associated things like sleepless nights, for example. You know, the night after a big loss, you won't sleep very well, and if you do, you'll wake up early and you'll wake up with that horrible knot in your stomach, knowing the damage you have done to yourself. Now, like I say, there is the knock-on stress of how am I going to pay this bill? How am I going to pay that back? How am I going to get to the end of the month? Because after all, there's always far too much month left at the end of the money when you are suffering from a gambling addiction. But gambling very seldom comes as a standalone negative, harmful behaviour. Gambling often comes alongside a plethora of other destructive behaviours. If you ever go and stand outside a bookies, and if you're in a gambling recovery, I certainly wouldn't recommend going and standing outside a bookies. That's far too much in harm's way for my liking. But if you do, you will see a constant stream of people coming outside and smoking. Walk past any bookies on any high street and you'll see piles of cigarette butts just piled up outside the front door. Gambling is stressful and it will cause you to seek relief in other habits. Now, I was never a smoker. It was one of the very, very few vices that in my 40 plus years on this planet I have managed to swerve. However, it would be remiss not to say that gambling caused me to indulge in other harmful behaviours. It caused me to drink. Quite often, to be fair, when I was in my early stages of recovery, drink caused me to gamble because it lowered my resolve and it lowered my inhibitions, and it made me think that a quick punt would not do me any harm, which invariably it ended up doing me lots of harm. But quite often after a losing session of gambling, I would drink more to help, you know, in a sense, escape from the pain and from the situation I put myself in, albeit incredibly temporarily. And drinking, of course, comes with its own physical side effects, its own physical detriments, and that will also lead to premature aging and can lead to things that are far, far worse than premature aging. Also, after a heavy session of gambling, I would seek comfort in things like junk food. I can't remember a time where I'd witnessed experienced a substantial loss and I'd gone home and cooked and eaten something healthy. It would either be a case of drink myself silly and go to bed early, or stay up, probably drinking as well, and, you know, indulge myself, placate myself, comfort myself with some sort of horribly dirty and greasy junk food. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that I don't drink now. I do. I do still enjoy junk food, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with either of those behaviours in moderation. However, gambling certainly accelerated and exaggerated my use of alcohol and of comfort food and of just destructive and negative physical behaviours. I wouldn't look after myself. I wouldn't go out and exercise. I'd skip the gym the day after a heavy loss, and all those sorts of things where you are in a negative mind frame, so you don't bother to do anything positive to get yourself out of it. In fact, you just continue to indulge in negative habits, and often that negative habit could also be more gambling, which of course is going to perpetuate and continue the cycle of destruction in your life. So next time, I mention how long I've been gambling. Next time I mention how long I've been married, or basically allude to, or basically just come straight out and say my age. I'm pretty much 42, by the way, in case you're interested. Then, yes, if you want to keep commenting and saying you'd look at least 55, that's fine, because I know, all right? But if nothing else, if that gives you pleasure to sort of put what I would suggest are fairly mean comments in my videos, then good luck to you. I don't really care. But if anything, take it as a warning that gambling will lead to premature aging, and it's not necessarily the direct stress of gambling. It's also the indirect stress of the situation it puts you in. The stress, something I failed to mention earlier, the stress of lying to those people around you, the stress of having to constantly allow for, account for, and make up reasons for financial shortfalls, or where you've been, what you've been doing, why you're in a bad mood, all the lies we tell about them messing up our wages, the lies we tell about being stuck in traffic, or why we are mentally absent at certain occasions. All of that stress piles on top of you. But also, gambling will lead to other harmful behaviours, physical behaviours such as eating the wrong things, drinking too much, lack of sleep, all of those sorts of things, which, maybe when you get into your 40s, if you're not already, will make you look 55. So, take care of yourselves. And, like I say, if nothing else, and this is kind of what this channel's for, use me as a benchmark, use me as a warning as not what to do, and maybe go through some of my other videos and have a look for sort of my experiences, which can maybe lead to more positive behaviours and less of the negative. All right, take care, everyone. Thanks for all your support. Stay safe, stay sane. I'll speak to you on the next video.